Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Aladrian Kofer and today we will be talking about the effectiveness of body-worn cameras on policing. I would like to start by saying thank you for participating in my presentation because it has been a very long semester. It's been very extenuous. This has required a lot of research and a lot of work, a lot of data collection and things of that nature. I would like to start by saying that my video is recorded on my phone and not on a webcam, which is why I am not able to share screens. However, the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation that I am following is the exact same presentation that you'll be receiving in your email. So the best approach to this would simply be to open up the PowerPoint presentation and follow it as I follow it in the video. And here we go. So, as I stated before, the effectiveness of body-worn cameras is the sole subject that I have chosen to study. I chose to study this topic because right now police brutality is a very controversial topic. We live in a society where a lot of times we only see one perspective. We only see what the public sees. We only see what is recorded on cell phones, what is recorded on camcorders, what is recorded on GoPros, whatever it so may be, but we never really see, or we hardly see, the perspective of the police officers. And by implementing body-worn camera policies within police departments, this gives officers an opportunity to say, hey, this is what happened from our perspective. This is how we interpreted things. This is how we saw things. This is things from our perspective. And this can provide a sense of protection for officers from false accusations. And if they have to have a physical encounter, this is what happened. And footage can't lie. So essentially, these body-worn cameras are essential to the safety of officers, not only in protecting themselves, but also in the way that they protect our communities. So that is essentially why I chose this topic. A little bit of background information on body-worn cameras. The body-worn cameras this is not a new technology, something that's been developed within the last decade. Internationally, body-worn cameras have been around since 2005. They originally started out in the UK, and they have conducted several studies. However, they did not make it to the United States until about 2012, where in California, the very first police department in the United States to implement body-worn cameras was Rialto Police Department in 2012. And when they did release this technology, they didn't just throw the body cameras on officers and say, here you go, this is what we're going to do, this is the new policy. No, they released this on a trial and error basis. So essentially, a set amount of officers received the technology while certain officers did not, and they collected data prior to the deployment of these body-worn cameras, and they also collected data after and during the time period of which they deployed these cameras to essentially view and collect data on the effectiveness of this technology. Also, in 2013, the Police Executive Research Forum conducted a survey of 500 law enforcement agencies throughout the United States. Of the 254 departments that had responded to the survey, only 25% reported that they used BWCs at the time. So essentially, this is saying that in 2013, a little over half of the police departments were even responding to the survey, and of that half, only 25% were actually implementing this policy. So it's essentially safe to say that around 2013, this technology was still new and it hadn't really been implemented in very many departments. However, this is an increasing number. Now there have been a number of impact studies that were important and imperative to the advancement of this technology within other police departments. The first one is one that was conducted in October of 2012 at the Ness Police Department. They implemented a 1-year trial period, and 50 patrol officers received the technology and 50 patrol officers did not. And the results found that 60% fewer citizen complaints against officers wearing body-worn cameras compared to control group officers, 40% fewer total complaints overall, and 75% total fewer use of force incidents overall during the trial period than they did the year prior to wearing the BWC. So essentially, these statistics are saying that with the implementation of this new technology, there are less complaints and there are less violent encounters. So within this study, these body-worn cameras are proving to be effective. The next study conducted was in April of 2013. The Phoenix Police Department implemented a body-worn camera project in its Mayville precinct intended for two purposes: to increase police accountability and two, to increase the effectiveness of the police in their response to domestic violence. Now, as a result, citizens' complaints against officers who wore the cameras declined by 23% compared to a 10.6% increase among officers who didn't wear it, and 45.1% increase among patrol officers in other precincts. So essentially what this is saying, that the officers who wore this technology, the complaints against these officers decreased by 23%, while the officers who did not have the technology only showed a 10%, showed a 10% increase. So essentially, again, here we are. This technology is proving to be effective within the Phoenix Police Department. My current study I developed my current study based on reading literature reviews and reading data collected from prior studies. Essentially, I designed my study to solely focus on police officers and those who are using the technology, simply because while most of my classmates and my peers use this from a community's perspective, I had the ability and the resources and the access to police officers to collect data from them to view how they feel about this technology. I did not seek to review data or statistics or specific numbers. I simply desired to know how officers feel about this technology, because they are the individuals who wear this technology. My study seeks to explain how officers view the technology. How do they feel about it? Do they feel safer? Do they feel as if this has decreased false accusations, things of that nature? Other studies focus on these statistics of the decrease in physical encounters, while my study focuses on if officers feel the technology has helped decrease the physical encounters. Other studies focus on the amount of false accusations. I focus on if officers feel that this has helped with the amount of false accusations. And I did it this way simply because it would be a very much more extenuous process to run numbers and collect numbers over a set period of time. And the period of time of which I seek to study has surpassed. They have surpassed the trial error. They have surpassed the data collection period, essentially. So now at this point, I am only reviewing if they feel that this policy is effective within their police department. The data that I collected, I gathered 20 police officers from the University of North Texas Police Department. I developed a survey with 10 control variables and 10 dependent variables. The variables were measured with using multiple choice options, and for certain particular questions, I offered the option of yes, no, or maybe. And for the questions that had the option of selecting maybe, I followed that question with an open-ended response, asking participants and individuals to give me a reason as to why they selected maybe. And I did this with intent to put qualitative data in with quantitative data, simply because this qualitative data gives me a reason and gives me an understanding of why they selected maybe or why they don't feel a particular way. The three hypotheses that I chose to focus were as follows. The first hypothesis analyzed whether officers who wore and used the BWCs according to policy find the policy more effective than those who do not. The second hypothesis sought to prove whether BWCs will decrease the number of false accusations posed against police. The final hypothesis tested to determine if the officers believe that compliance with a BWC policy will increase accountability. In my analysis to test my hypothesis and to analyze the results that I collected, I conducted a frequency and descriptive analysis for all 10 control variables and all 10 dependent variables, followed by 5 bivariate analysis constructed in pivot tables. The analysis will indicate, and these analyses essentially would indicate if my hypotheses were right or not. So in my first table, which is my first analysis on here, because I cannot share, you can't see the table, but I have a pivot table in this slide, and this pivot table essentially has a control variable of do you record every encounter with the citizen, while my dependent variable is do you believe that officers in your department abide by the BWC policy. The options that were given were yes and no. The options provided for do you record every encounter with a citizen were yes and no, while do you believe all officers in your department abide by the policy were provided yes, no, and maybe options. Of the officers who said that they record every encounter, one officer believed that maybe all officers in the department abide by the BWC policy, while 2 officers that reported yes to every encounter reported that they record every encounter with a citizen believe that not all officers abide by the policy. Lastly, 4 officers that recorded that they encounter with a citizen believe that all officers abide by the policy. However, 2 of the officers that said no, they do not record every encounter with the citizen said that maybe all officers abide by the policy, and of the 11 officers who said no, that they do not record every encounter with the citizen, believe that yes, all officers abide by policy. Now, essentially what this means is that we have officers that have essentially reported that they do not record every encounter with the citizen. So it's essentially a not hypocritical statement, it's contradiction. That's essentially what it is. For officers, the policy at UNT Police Department states that every officer is supposed to record every encounter with the citizen. So to have 11 officers say that they do not record every encounter with the citizen, whereas they believe that all officers abide by the policy, it's a very big contradiction. So clearly, not all officers in the department are abiding by the policy. The next analysis that I have is, do you feel is my control variable being how many years of experience in law enforcement do you have, and do you feel safer wearing your BWC in the field, being the dependent variable. Now, how many years of experience was provided? The options were provided 0 to 5 years, 10 to 15 years, 5 to 10 years, and greater than 15 years. Of the officers with 0 to 5 years experience, 1 officer implied that they do not feel safer wearing the technology. 5 officers reported that they do. Of the officers with 10 to 15 years of experience, 1 officer replied that they may feel safer wearing the technology. 4 officers replied that they do feel safer. Of the officers with 5 to 10 years experience, 4 officers replied that they believe that they feel safer wearing technology. And of the officers with 15 years of experience, 3 said no and 2 said yes, that they feel safer wearing the technology. Now, this analysis was very eye-opening for me, because for the officers that have been in law enforcement for 15 years plus, they have seen law enforcement without cameras, without technology, cameras in the car, things of that nature. So for them to say that they do not feel safer wearing the technology in the field, essentially it was very eye-opening, because it led to the question of why does experience play a factor in law enforcement. However, that was not the purpose of my study, so I did not go into further research on that. Lastly, my policy recommendation. Essentially, my policy recommendation The first step that I said for my policy recommendation is that it is very important to deploy cameras on a trial basis prior to permanent deployment, simply because these cameras are very expensive. For the individuals who do not know, the purchase of the equipment is not the expensive part. The storage of the files and the data is what is expensive. So while yes, the idea of body-worn cameras is it sounds very good and it looks very good on paper, it's very expensive. And if you are to deploy this technology in your department and it does not fulfill its purpose, you don't see a decrease in statistics or an increase where you would like to see an increase. This technology is essentially waste. So it is important to do an experiment, to conduct a study, collect your data prior to the release of this technology. So essentially, if this means 50 officers get the technology and 50 officers do not, and you compare statistics, that is the most important step, because this is where you see if this technology is truly effective in your police department. Second, it is important to collect statistical and qualitative data prior to deployment. This is essential. So if you would like to see less accusations, you would like to see quicker response time, you would like to see an increase in transparency, an increase in accountability, you have to collect that data prior to the deployment of this technology. And this data collection doesn't just stop with your police officers. This is a community thing. This is important in the community as well, because you cannot measure transparency and accountability and the opinion of that from police officers. Your community are the individuals who are seeing the true impact of this. Third, I would like to see them track the statistics during the study. So throughout the set time period of which you've conducted your study, maybe every 3 months, check and see what the statistics are, to see if this technology is proving to be useful over a period of time, not just between a 1 and 2 year period starting in. You have to frequently monitor this. And frequently collecting data after the deployment of the policy is the most important thing. It's what's going to tell you if this technology is effective in your department, because why would you spend millions of dollars and all of this time on technology that your police department isn't using effectively or isn't proving to be effective in your police department? So that is my policy recommendation, and thank you for watching my video, and have a good day.